Welcome to Her Path, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. Today, we are talking about community and why community is so important and why community has become so hard. So, pretty much every one of my coaching clients, when I start talking to them about what their lives are like and what they're looking for and what they want to change, the concept of loneliness and isolation comes up. And it is stunning to me how, since the pandemic, so many women have this feeling of loneliness and isolation, that their communities have broken down or have changed or have dissolved, and they don't have those confidants to share with that they used to have. Book clubs have stopped, coffee meetups have stopped, happy hours, these things are all coming back, but it's like the communities have broken down. So that has become a major part of my business, is helping people achieve new communities and finding safe places and people that they can really dive and share with. Interestingly, our U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, has done a whole book of works on the epidemic of loneliness and isolation in America, and has put together, a whole bunch of pillars around why this is happening and what the impact to society is, what the impact is to family structures, social structures, business structures. And I encourage anybody who wants to learn more, you can go out on the web and just put in, Dr. Murthy loneliness, and it will come up, his whole research around that. But I wanted to talk to you all about that. So when you think about your communities of women or people or friends or confidants, why is that so important to you? And have you found that post-pandemic, it is harder to bring back those communities, or that you've lost those communities?
I think for me, because I feel like probably a large size family. Juan, my husband, he has a large size family. And even though we have friends, and we have a good social kind of group here in where we live in Texas, in Dallas. And we have friends, kind of all over the country. We went to college together, so we share the same network of friends that we've stayed pretty connected with, like people we grew up with. I feel like, though, as an adult, making new connections, making new friends is it takes work now. It seems like, I don't know, when you're younger, it's just like easier because you are, kind of together all the time, every day, like in school. And so now as an adult, it just takes more effort to explore and find your people. And I think it's because we're, at least like speaking for myself, sometimes it's getting past the fear of rejection, or the fear of that person's way different than me. I don't know if we're going to get along well. Sometimes it's some self-isolation where we intentionally avoid situations, people, because we fear that there's not going to be a connection. They're not going to like us. We have completely different interests. So there's no way that this is going to work. So it takes a lot more, definitely, work, being intentional on finding your people and exposing yourself to people who you never thought you might build a connection with. So I feel like it does take more work now, as an adult, than it did in the past. And just thinking it's going to happen spontaneously and find you and happen to you doesn't get really much results when it comes to, building your community or building a new network of friends, coworkers, what have you.
What about you?
Well, it's kind of interesting to think for me about communities. I have always felt like a loner, like I am just the type of person that has like one or two friends. And I've really kind of always been that way. I enjoy one-on-one conversation, but like being in a community, um, I've never really felt like I was in a community or wanted to be even a part of a community. Like when, a lot of my social connections came through pre-pandemic work and coworkers. And when coworkers would want to get together, like after work, I didn't understand that. I'm like, why? Why would you want to do that? I don't understand. I am so perfectly fine being alone and in my own just in my own space in my own thoughts in my own world and having like one or two like real deep connections. And I don't know where that comes from, if that's just a personality or characteristic trait or whatever it is, but I remember telling my mom like I is there something wrong with me that I don't have a lot of friends? Like growing, like in college, I had some friends, but I had like again, it was just like one or two really close friends, and they had a lot of friends, and I would go with them and I would socialize and be fine. But as a commute, like forming a community, I don't really feel like I've had one or been part of one. But also thinking like my substance abuse disorder may have played a big role into that because that's very isolating and it was, an excuse to be alone so I could use my substance. And so post that, I have started, which has been post COVID too, is like building community and having a lot of friends. And now I do like I have like it kind of my astoundment, I probably have like more than like 12 friends that I would consider friends and like in different communities. Like I have a community in my church. I have a community with my life coach friends. I have a community of just friends. And I have some coworkers, like a community that I actually would, if they would invite me, I would go out and hang out with them. Um, but I think having like common interests is helpful to have that. And I think maybe part of my isolation and not having community, I didn't know myself for so long. Like I didn't know what I was interested in. Like I just would thought that, you grow up, you go to school, you get a career, you get a husband, you have kids or you don't have kids, and that's just your life. Like what am I interested in? It was always I didn't know, like I didn't have interests, I didn't think. And so just kind of getting older, exploring what my interests are and sharing that with other people. It can be vulnerable. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. We talked about imposter syndrome and being in community. I think it exposes you and exposes to that imposter syndrome, which doesn't feel good. And I think part of the brain is like, I don't want to feel like an imposter, so I'm just going to avoid being in community. Yeah.
So interesting. So my need for community, I think, is from my childhood. So I grew up in upstate New York, and my dad's whole family was in India, and my mom's whole family was in New Hampshire. And so our friends really became our family. And we had huge communities of friends. So there were, lots of dinner parties. My father was a professor, so the whole, all of his professor friends and their spouses were part of our community. We had friends within the town, friends of, family friends that came out of my sister and my, friends at school. But that was our family, our day-to-day family. And so as I have become an adult, I have lots of different communities of friends. So work communities, um, you all as the life coach school community, friends that I have developed through, my kids being in the school district. So I feel that I have them, but they mean so much to me, right? That sense of community, being surrounded by like-minded folks, that support me and have my back, that is what family is to me, right? And now I have the luxury of having family locally. My parents are here, my in-laws and my husband's whole family is here. The ability to share ideas with different groups of people, the different experiences and thoughts, having those good times, but also being able to talk about the serious things, and being able to get counsel, right? I know that these people all have my back and will help guide me in the right direction when I don't know how to move forward. So that has what's been so important to me, and why, when my clients say to me, I'm lonely and isolated, that really tugs on my heartstrings, because I want everyone to have the same connections and community that I have. And, one of the things that I've done is create these coaching circles, these small groups that meet over a couple of months. And we do a lot of work around deep dive thinking and women's issues and coaching within these circles. But these women come out of these circles bonded, right? And that's shown up in different ways. They've done get-togethers afterwards. Some have done retreats. Some of them have continued to meet regularly. But I love the idea of helping women create communities, because I think it's so important for us, in this space. So when you think about your coaching clients, and we all have very different niches, but when you think about what loneliness and isolation does to your clients that you're working with, and the value of community, I would love for you to share that with your niches.
So for me, being a family medicine physician and seeing people, in the office, I do have people who see me, and I may be the only person that they are vulnerable with ever. And sometimes, and I feel like it happens with men, but definitely a lot more with women. One of the first questions that I ask is, so how are you feeling today? Or how are you doing today? And it's surprising to me how many times I get tears as the first thing, like someone who's just here for a checkup, and comes in and like, so how are you doing today? And just tears. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, are you okay? What's going on? They're like, I don't know. It's like, so no one has probably asked about you, or you haven't had an opportunity to even think about you or yourself or how you're feeling in a while. And it's totally normal to all of a sudden have that, flush of emotions, especially for someone who's been isolated or lonely or hasn't had an opportunity to, have a kind of close connection with someone else. And sometimes it's me, the person that they have that connection with. And so normalizing that, or saying that it's okay to, to feel your emotions and to process it and to figure out, well, what was that? So what exactly is happening with me? And sometimes in that interaction, it comes out that maybe there is a little bit of loneliness, or there's been a little bit of isolation. There's been a lack of, support, and then just coming up with small ways to kind of help work on it if it is something that they want to make better. It's super common.
Yeah. And I think for my folks that suffer with autoimmune disease and other chronic illness, there's a common theme of feeling isolated and alone, having a disease that you don't look sick, and people don't understand how bad you feel. And it can make you feel like there's some like you're crazy and that maybe you're making it up, but really you do feel like you're not yourself. You're completely like fatigued and brain fogged, and you have, depending on what type of autoimmune disease you have, some are completely debilitating. Multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, just feeling like sleeping all the time and never feeling rested. And people are, trying to live up to other people's expectations and say, well, you don't look sick, so why can't you why can't you come out with us and hang out with my friends? Or why can't you, do your responsibilities around the house like you used to do? Like, there's nothing wrong with you. And going from doctor to doctor to doctor, it takes an average of 4.5 to 7 years to finally get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, because there's no one test. Is, Gabby, you know that there's over 100 different autoimmune diseases, and there's no like, oh, yep, we have a test for that. And all of the symptoms are very vague in the beginning, and until the disease progresses to where it's affecting the specific organ or body part or whatever it is, then you finally get the diagnosis. And so I think with my folks, it's so lonely and isolating, and to know that you're not alone and you're not crazy. And yeah, the doctors don't understand. And I know you don't feel heard. And I've not felt heard too. And there's been stigma with certain, oh, you just have, fibromyalgia. There's really nothing we can do. Here's an antidepressant, or, and feeling hopeless and that they're never going to live a normal life again. And to be able to come into community and show people that with certain changes, changing habits, like there are things that you can do to feel better. And it's not something that's going to change overnight, but to be in community with other folks and to have inspiration of, there's Dr. Terry Walls, who she's a, oh gosh, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but she's I don't know if she's a surgeon, but neuroscientist. She's a doctor who had has MS, and was completely wheelchair bound. And through changing her diet and lifestyle and mindset, is thriving and living a normal life, and out walking, not wheelchair bound, any of those things. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of inspirational stories out there that people need to know about when they're feeling isolated and alone, and kind of in the depths of their despair of living with a chronic illness, thinking that they'll never be able to have their life back. And so building community is very important. And right now, I am trying to figure out what platform to build that on. Facebook is a very powerful, wonderful, community-led way to connect with people. And I'll share that I'm not down with the Facebook, and I can't. I'm trying to figure out how to bring people together in community, not in Facebook. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I think it's so wonderful, at least that you bring your people in small groups and circles, and they feel supported. And after that group, it's just life-changing experiences. And me personally, just not in my niche, but in my own life of different groups that I've been a part of, there's so much power in hearing other people's experiences and struggles in life, to know that you're not alone. Like we are a common thread. We're all human, and we all have the human experience, but it can feel so isolating and alone. But then when you hear somebody share their story, share their struggle, their experience, it's something that you can't even describe. Like, it's just so life affirming and like transformative. It's so beautiful.
Right. And feeling like you're not the only one that is going through this. And then also learning about how other people overcome some of the similar challenges, some of the similar circumstances that you may be confronting that are affecting your daily, either ability to function or affecting your performance in your job. There's a lot of big, physician communities out there, and even within certain communities, there's even smaller and smaller and more very, specific, like for me being a Hispanic professional physician, life coach, mother, like if you look for your very specific, they are out there, and sometimes it just takes fumbling around and figuring out what exactly you're looking for before you finally actually find it. And yes, none of us are alone. None of us are alone. And that's the fascinating thing, is that there are so many other women like us out there having similar experiences. And it just takes it does take more work and more effort, I think, in some coaching to try to figure out, well, what exactly is it that I need? But you have to figure out first for yourself, what is it that I need? What is it that I'm actually looking for?
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into, just I have developed some practices over time to help me keep good communities, right? So creating that personal connection, and this one especially at work, treating the people as people first, not colleagues, not employees, not workers, right? Making sure that we're treating the individual as a whole. Reaching out, right? Everybody gets busy. Making time for a touch base makes all the difference. Yeah, I know so many people who wait. Well, they haven't reached out. They haven't reached out. Okay, but you could reach out, right? Kindness, showing that empathy, encouragement, support, that creates a safe space and lets people be vulnerable, which makes those connections just stronger. Here's the next one. Keeping judgment out of the discussions. Everybody has a right to their values and views. That's a little bit of the manual that we talked about last week. It's so much harder these days, right? People's views are so strong right now and can be used as weapons. But if we can keep judgment out of the discussions and just respect that everybody has a right to their own values, it makes it so much easier to make those good community connections and be vulnerable, right? The strongest connections come from those deeply real conversations, and showing our vulnerability creates safety for others to share as well. Any other ones that you have learned over time?
I think for me, I learned about myself that I first had to learn how to enjoy my own company before I could enjoy other people's company. And I am okay with having alone time. And I figured out that I actually do need my own time to be able to recharge, to be able to re-energize. And I learned that for me, being in groups or, performing, I call my job like performing because we do have to put our best face forward, as a coach, I feel like, or as a physician, kind of be there, hold that space. It does take energy. It does take energy for me. It's not something that just comes really natural a lot of the time. And so having just a small group of close friends is ideal for me. And having my alone time to reset has been amazing. I don't need to be going out to happy hour every single night. I don't need to be going to functions every single weekend. I don't need to be networking, going to galas, being invited to every single, party out there. I'm okay with that. That's not something that gives me a sense of joy or fulfillment. but I do feel that having a small group of close connections is very valuable. And it's with people that I don't call every day. I'm not a talk on the phone kind of girl. I don't, I'm not going to be, checking in all the time. But, I do like those close connections where even if I haven't communicated or we haven't talked in, weeks or months, that is just very natural and it's non-judgmental. It doesn't feel like an obligation. And it's almost like time starts where it left off.
Yeah, what Gabby said. Yeah, definitely. I feel that too. Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that this has given you some things to think about in terms of your own communities and how to keep your community strong or build more communities if you are someone that's facing loneliness and isolation. I encourage you to reach out to any of us as, professional life coaches. We can help with that. And if this was a good podcast for you, please subscribe and share it with the people around you, with your communities. And feel free to give us a good rating. We would really love that. That would help us reach more people. So thank you for listening, and we hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.